Hi, everybody. I'm Don Stewart, and welcome to our second edition of Breaking News for this Tuesday, the 30th day of September, 2025. And as you can imagine, the headlines in the news are all about Donald Trump's plan for peace with Israel, between them and Hamas, waiting for Hamas's response. We have three really important stories to bring to you that move this subject along. So let's get to them. First, from the Jerusalem Post, Trump's Gaza ultimatum. 3 to 4 days to accept the peace plan. That's all you have, Hamas. 3 to 4 days. Trump's Gaza peace plan, from also the Jerusalem Post, is non-negotiable, according to a senior Israeli official who tells us to the Jerusalem Post. So they got 3 or 4 days to respond, and the plan is non-negotiable. And finally, from Israel HaYom, beyond the day after, Trump's plan may reshape the Middle East. This from Israel HaYom. All right, let's look at these stories. First headline, Trump's Gaza ultimatum, 3 to 4 days to accept the peace plan. U.S. President Donald Trump issued an ultimatum to Hamas on Tuesday, warning the terror group they have 3 to 4 days to respond to his 20-point Gaza peace plan. If Hamas rejects the plan, Israel will do what it has to do, Trump added. Hamas is either going to be doing it or not. And if it's not, it's going to be a very sad end, he said. Asked if there was room for negotiations on the peace plan, Trump said, not much. The president, along with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, announced the details of the plan at the White House on Monday in a joint press conference following a meeting with delegations from the two administrations and a trilateral phone call, including the Qatari Prime Minister. If Hamas rejects Trump's Gaza plan, Israel will finish the job, an envoy says. If the Palestinian terror group rejects Trump's Gaza peace plan, so here's what's going to happen next. Israel will finish the job and bring home all the remaining hostages. This from Israeli ambassador to the U.S., Danny Danon. He said that on Tuesday. If they reject the plan, Israel will finish the job either the easy way or the hard way. Their return, speaking of the hostages, cannot wait. There is not only a roadmap to bring them back, it is also a plan to end the tyranny of terror that was unleashed on October 7th. Danon told an event at the UN to mark the upcoming 2-year anniversary of the Hamas massacre. So basically, this is what's going to happen. Either they will accept it or they will not. We'll know in 3 or 4 days. And there's no really room for negotiations, as we're going to see with the next story. But if they do not, Israel will go on full force and make sure Hamas is wiped out once and for all. And Israel has the cover now because they had the offer, Hamas, the peace offer from Trump that many of the Arab states had backed and stood behind. And so Hamas will have no one to blame. You can't point the finger at Israel if Hamas turns this down because they either take it or else. So we wait to see what happens 3 or 4 days. Now, this next story is really interesting. Trump's Gaza peace plan is non-negotiable, senior Israeli official tells the Jerusalem Post. The comments followed remarks by Qatar's Prime Minister Sheikh Al-Thani, who strongly suggested that negotiations would be necessary. U.S. President Donald Trump's plan to end the war in Gaza is non-negotiable, a senior Israeli official told the Jerusalem Post on Tuesday. This must be a simple yes or no answer from Hamas, the source said. The comments followed remarks by Qatar's Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed Al Thani, who strongly suggested that negotiations would be necessary. Trump's plan achieves the central goal of ending the war, but it contains issues that require clarification and negotiation, Al Thani said on Tuesday. He added that ending the war is a clear component of the plan, but the question of Israel's withdrawal from Gaza requires clarification and discussion. Israeli officials and other officials familiar with the talks told the Post that Hamas's eventual answer will likely be yes, but with significant reservations. One of the main sticking points they believe will be the issue of Israeli withdrawal from Gaza. Trump's plan does not specify any dates regarding a withdrawal of the IDF from the Strip. Hamas wants to see a concrete timetable, one source explained. Other contentious points are also expected to arise, including the demand for all hostages be released within 72 hours, the question of governance in Gaza, and the release of Palestinian prisoners. According to officials, Hamas is likely to present objections or seek clarifications on these issues. Now, again, what happens after the war ends? Well, again, if you were watching yesterday, you heard what Donald Trump said. The vision that he presented is to de-radicalize Gaza, to make it terrorism-free. Hamas members who have commit to peaceful coexistence will have to give up their weapons, and they could receive amnesty. Those who choose to leave Gaza would be offered safe passage to third world countries or third countries. Maybe it would be third world countries. All right. Now, the text does not spell out vetting standards, penalties for violations, or a policing model to enforce disarmament. The plan's feasibility rests on three tests: mutual acceptance by Israel and Hamas, the credible enforcement of security and disarmament inside Gaza, and the sustained funding and political backing from regional and international partners. So basically, it's a take it or leave it. Now, we're not surprised that Qatar Prime Minister, got in there and said, no, no, we have to have more negotiations because he is just a shell for Hamas. They are, work together. Hamas is staying in their country at their behest. They're watching them, watching over them. And what's also to me interesting, the 21 points, as been with us the last few days, that was originally released to the world was not the same 20 points that ended up being what Trump presented yesterday, which they presented to the world right before Netanyahu and Trump spoke. There were a number of points there that really favored the Palestinians in the future, and actually Hamas too. And those were all taken out thanks to Israel's insistence. So evidently the Qatar Prime Minister didn't get the memo on those, so he's not real happy that these things haven't been dealt with. So it's real simple. It's a take it or leave it. If you take it, then you release the hostages within 72 hours, then lay down your arms, get out, and we'll redo Gaza. We'll make it what it should be and what it should have been in the last 20 years. If you don't, then as Danny Danon said, Israel will finish the job and they will do what is necessary. They've got the green light from Donald Trump. They've got the backing of, the United States of America. So we will wait and see what happens. Again, 3 to 4 days, we should know something, but no more negotiations because this is what Hamas would, like we said, we're probably expecting them to do, saying, well, we've got a few questions. We need a few things to negotiate before we say yes or no. And Trump says, no, it's a take it or leave it. Please make your decision. We can negotiate those other things afterwards because the first thing they have to do to make sure this negotiation works is to release all the hostages within 72 hours. Then we can move on from there. Nothing happens until they do that. Now, what's interesting in headline number 3 is from Israel HaYom. This is talking about beyond the day after. Trump's plan may reshape the Middle East. And this is really interesting in light of last day's Bible prophecy, as we will explain. For the first time in nearly 2 years, a plan has been developed by President Trump's administration that has won support from Arab states and Israel. White smoke did not rise Monday from the Oval Office during the Netanyahu-Trump meeting. There's a nice little reference to the Vatican there and choosing a pope. And no official announcement came regarding a Gaza ceasefire and immediate release of all Israeli hostages. Nevertheless, this marked a significant turning point in this difficult campaign history, potentially serving as the vital springboard for halting the fighting, perhaps reshaping the entire Middle East arena. For the first time in nearly 2 years, a plan has been developed and presented by President Trump's administration that has won support from both Arab states and Israel. This is rather amazing, not only for the day after the fighting ends, but also regarding the region's future character and cooperative processes and confidence-building measures that will define it going forward. This occurs under the stabilization leadership of an American superpower. In other words, the U.S. is going to basically look after all this, shepherd all of this. Now, not only does the new framework incorporate specific mechanisms intended to completely remove Hamas from the picture as a ruling body and as a murderous terror organization connected at its core to the regional apex of the axis of evil, namely Iran, but it is entirely anchored in a broad inter-Arab agreement regarding the need to mobilize and act jointly and institutionally to channel the bleeding front towards the desired destination of sustainable arrangements carrying the promise of economic prosperity and political moderation. Wouldn't that be wonderful if it happened? This, therefore, represents the profound meaning of the new framework plan that was released to the world on Monday evening, pending its final approval, with vigorous assistance from the entire bloc of Arab states, which will exert pressure on Hamas. This is a new reference framework whose basic principles cannot be ignored. At its core, the broad recognition that Hamas's time as Gaza ruler has passed, and praise God for that. The multilateral institutions to be established, along with the organizational mechanisms that will govern their functioning, are intended to ensure the success of the promised de-radicalization process, which will secure Israel's safety and advance it towards a path of rehabilitation and growth. The ball is now in the hands of the American Eagle, which is supposed to utilize all the available influence levers and is committed to the war's immediate end to ensure that this framework regarding the contours of the new Middle East indeed materializes. As for Israel, after nearly 2 years of difficult war and an unbearable number of casualties, one can only hope that the time of recovery and healing will arrive very soon. Given the fact that the special relationship fabric between the U.S. has remained strong and relations with moderate Arab bloc states have not been unraveled, there is room to hope and believe that a new and calmer era stands at Israel's doorstep, both in the domestic sphere and, of course, in the regional sphere, the regional arena. All right, that is the hope from this editorial, this from Israel HaYom, and it's the hope of the Israelis. But here's where it really helps. We're knowing what the Bible has to say and looking at the picture of what's in the future. What do we know from Scripture? Well, we know that before the return of Jesus Christ, there will be a time when Israel is seemingly at peace. We know this from the description of the Ezekiel 38-39 invasion, which takes Israel totally by surprise. They feel like they're completely secure. Therefore, and here's what's really interesting. It is not impossible for a period of time where Israel will feel secure from any attacks from its neighbors. While they're certainly not there yet, things are indeed moving this way, this direction with Hezbollah, Hamas, and Houthis becoming less and less of a threat every day, as well as the snake that is Iran itself being less of a threat. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens in the short term. So again, from the biblical picture, if you want to know what's going to take place, we once again encourage you to download two of our books from our website, Educating Our World, 25 Signs We're Near the End, and look up a timeline of 50 last days events. They are both free downloads. All our material is free. We're not here to sell anything to you. Free downloads from our website, Educating Our World, under the heading of Bible Prophecy. And as usual, we're going to have to stay tuned to find out what happens next. Really interesting. So we'll just wait and see. And hopefully within a few days or even sooner, we'll get an answer from Hamas. And when we do, we'll let you know. I'm Don Stewart. Thanks again for watching. Until next time, as always, may the Lord richly, richly bless.